Hello. I'm so excited to be with you today. Thank you for clicking on this so that we can connect energetically. As you know, I've been creating these conversations for people that are interested in learning more about people that have connected with their inner self and higher self to create the ability to tap into their intuition. And energy management is such a big part of this. I actually didn't realize much about energy back in 2010, 2012, when I sort of was catapulted into this self-discovery. But I have to say that energy management is something that I manage and pay attention to every single day. And it's interesting because it's something that you can do obviously in your personal life, but in your professional life too. And I think for many of us that are yearning for a deeper why am I here? Why is this happening? What do I need to be working on? Is this all there is? Oftentimes, shifting your energy, which I also call frequency, really helps to open your eyes to things that are happening around you that are actually happening for you. And so today's episode, Energy Management Intuitive Techniques, is some of the strategies that I've used over the last decade that have really helped me hone in on the energy that I'm sharing, but also the energy that I'm taking in. And I think for many of us, really monitoring where we are with our energy is so important because it gives us the ability to tune into a higher level of knowing. Some of you may call it intuition or your higher self, but opening up these channels is such a big part of the reason we're on the planet. Now, you might be thinking, that's crazy, JJ. I don't know what you're talking about. But I've learned over the last decade that being on the planet is really a place for us to learn and grow and experience. And I think for many of us, life is happening to us where things are just popping in and we're handling and juggling and doing and being. But in reality, many of the things that cross our path are lessons, they're awakenings, they're reasons for us to say, why is that happening? Or what is the lesson in this message that keeps coming my way? And that's a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last 14 years, much of which I've shared in my book, Seeking, because it was something that I had to really understand at a level that I wasn't prepared for even 5 years ago. And what came forward for me in my work, in my awakening, in my up-leveling, in using my intuition, is the ability to know where my frequency is at or my energy level is at, and then also being totally present into what is happening right now in front of me and collecting the data points that allow me to decipher the messages that are coming my way, the lessons that are coming my way, the people, the messengers. So, today, as we talk about energy management, I really want you to sort of think about where is your energy and what are the techniques that you can use over the next 24 hours or 2 weeks or 2 months. So, a great way to think about energy is kind of thinking about what radio station you're at. So, I think of energy as frequency bands. As many of you know, I grew up in computers, and before we went into data centers, we were doing analog. And we were doing telephones and microwave and satellite, and a lot of it came down to frequency and bands, frequency bands. And so when you think about energy management, what frequency band are you at? What frequency band are you at? Do you kind of hover at 84.7? Are you real far down into the 40s or the 50s, or maybe you're at 76.2? Or maybe you're on the other end where you're at 102.7. There is absolutely no wrong answer. No wrong answer. But knowing what frequency you hover at is really important. And then what takes you down to a lower frequency and what brings you up to a higher frequency. So, really thinking about kind of what shifts your frequency, what do you allow to shift your frequency, what really gets under your skin, what are things you don't like to do. On my website, jjdigeronimo.com/power of no, there is, or if you look up Power of No and JJ DiGeronimo, you'll find a chart that I often reference, and it has 6 columns, and it really talks about the things that you've already said yes to. What are the commitments you've already said yes to, right? How much time do they take? What is the energy it gives you? And does it align to where you are, where you want to go? And I have a really great video and a worksheet and a chapter on the power of no, which I use all the time because it really gives me permission to decide what I want to put into my calendar and what really doesn't belong there. And I think for many of us, really deciphering what you should pay attention to, what you should say yes to, was my first key indicator of how to manage my own energy. Because if I really monitored and managed I put on my schedule that aligned to a particular frequency or energy, that really helped me make sure that I didn't have too many things that depleted me or I had more things that really filled me up. And I think for many of us, really knowing what fills you up is so important because it often are your fuel stations, places you go to fill up. So this could be walking, this could be a movie, this could be a hot tea, this could be a trip, this could be, maybe being able to journal or mow your grass or hang out with your neighbors. You should have small and big fuel stations. So things that you can do within a couple hours of the time you're feeling low, or things that are bigger that you're preparing or planning for. I feel like fuel stations for me, I feel like fuel stations for me have been such a big deal in my own awakening and frequency elevation. So I love the power of no chart because it gives me permission to really look at my entire schedule and determine what is working for me, to determine what things are aligned to where I'm going or where I'm at. And I think for many of us, it's hard to find tools that give you permission to align to the right activities, the right commitments. And also in the Power of No chart and chapter, I give you about 10 statements to ask yourself when things come your way. Questions like, what does success look like? Is there budget for this ask? Who else has already worked on it? Who do I need to partner to work on that? How long is this going to take? What things is it going to impact that I've already said yes to? For me, I have to have tools and techniques that help me decipher where I should spend my time and energy and what is going to impact my frequency. So, as you really think about your life, think about what you're working on, think about what you hope to work on next, really take a minute to say, where is my frequency? What energy do I reside at right now? And is this high enough of an energy to give me the momentum to leap into something that excites me, or leap into something that calls me, or leap into something that I have had on my to do list, on my heart for some time? So, for those of you that are thinking, I don't know what you're talking about, or why are you talking about this? I think it's a great question. I feel like life is all about energy. And I did not realize that. I thought life was about getting things done, about keeping everything going in the right direction, about kind of hitting the marks that I set forth for myself years ago. But what I've learned now that I'm over 50 is that life is really about the energy you receive, the energy you create, and the energy you share. And being really focused on where you are aligning your time, what activities you're saying yes to, and what excites you is so important because those are the things that are going to give you the momentum to open doors and leap into the direction you desire next. And for me, some of the times that I've had really low energy, I've had to look at the relationships that I was holding in my life, the people I had on speed dial. people I had on favorites. And I had to monitor, kind of the conversations we were having. In fact, I just got off an energy call with a dear friend of mine, and we were looking at sort of their day, their highs and lows. Where is their energy really high and where's their energy low? And after spending some time digging through the activities around the time it's very low, we recognized that that person was having phone calls with the same person a couple times a week. And what they sort of really sort of dove into is that every time they have a call with this person, their energy really plummeted. It wasn't that it was a bad call or the person was mean, but the conversation they were having, she was often listening, she was often guiding this other person through the ups and downs of her life. But in reality, that was depleting her. So when she hung up the phone, she was kind of in a lower state of energy and she had to work to get her energy higher. She has learned that if she goes outside, if she pulls weeds, if she plants flowers, if she cuts back some of the trees in her yard, her energy slowly raises up. And so we really talked about, that type of conversation, those types of relationships that are pulling you down. How long or how far, I should say, does that energy pull you down? And how long does it take to raise that energy back up? So, as part of energy management, not only do you have to really pay attention to where you align your time, you also have to think about what conversations, what connections, what relationships are you in? And is that filling you up or is that reducing your frequency? Over the last 14 years, I've had a lot of shifts in relationships because as I evolved in my spiritual journey, as I evolved in my intuitive knowing and the work that I do today, I've had to be really mindful of where I spent my time and how much time I spent with people that had a lot going on in their lives, a lot of lessons they were learning. But, how close am I to stay to those lessons or to really foster those relationships? And what is the reciprocation? Because in a couple of my relationships, I was doing a lot of the friend coaching, supportive, listening, guiding, champion. And although I love that, I can't have all my relationships be that because then I realize that my bucket is very empty. And that's when I really need to find my fuel stations or realign my time so that I can have maybe one or two of those calls a day and not five of those calls a day, or not one or two of those projects, or even 5 or 6 of those projects. So really figuring out where is your energy today and what bubbles your energy up to another level and what pushes it down? Because for what the work that we're doing on the world and the planet right now is we really have to work to raise our frequency, raise our energy. Because when we raise our energy and our frequency, we raise it up for others. And the world needs a higher frequency right now. And if you're being called or you're just starting to awaken to the real reason you're on the planet, energy management is a big piece of making sure that you protect yourself in a way that is fruitful, that you align to activities that allow you to blossom, and that you cultivate relationships that have a healthy exchange of energy, information, and connection. And so the tools that I've provided today are some of the tools that I've used. In my second book, Accelerate Your Impact, I have a couple charts as well as my first book where I really start to mine into energy and relationships. It's my first book, The Working Woman's GPS, where I realized that relationships were so important to how I felt about myself and my energy level. And so, as you really think about the people in your life, put all the people that you spend a lot of time with your life in column one. Then column 2, you can say, how do I feel? Like, what level of energy do I have? So is my energy high or is it low or is it in the middle, when I'm with this person? And how much energy does it take after I leave this person to bring my energy to the level I want it? And I think for me, it was super duper insightful to kind of see the energy drains, which my friend talks about as the energy vampires, people that drain your energy. Yes. So that is something that is very real. And I had a lot of those people over my lifetime in my life. And I feel like, some of them I've just had conversations with, like, hey, I'm trying to keep it a certain energy or a certain frequency. I don't mind talking about stuff for 10 or 15 minutes, but I can't talk about it for an hour. So if we want to get it out, put it out in the universe, let it go, or what I do is push that negative energy into the ground and let it become manure. We can do that. But then let's talk about the things that inspire and empower us. Because as humans, as people that aspire to really lean more into their intuition, energy management is absolutely critical in this aspect of the work because you have to mine your vessel. And I really think about my human body as a vessel and how much positive, how much negative energy am I carrying at any one time. And my goal is to get as high a frequency or high as energy as I can every day. So I line myself to things that fill me up. Of course, there's things I have to do that drain me, but usually there is a reason why I'm doing those, right? It's somebody I love. It's a project that has steps and pieces that I have to do things I don't like to get it to the other side. Or it's a relationship that, is just kind of in a funk right now, but it will pop out sooner or later. So, really thinking about where your energy is, what things you align to, are those fuel stations for you? What relationships you're maintaining? Are those fuel stations for you? Or do you have to do a little bit of maneuvering and kind of saying, by 3 to 6 months from now, I'm going to have a higher energy or higher frequency. And to do that, here's 2 or 3 things I have to do. Here's some commitments I have to get off my desk. Here's some relationships I need to clean up. Or the third could be something that all of us are challenged with that I really had to take the time and energy to really figure out what was happening. The third is what is happening inside. What's happening with your ego energy? What's happening in your mind? How do you talk to yourself? Now, this is something that I didn't think about probably the first 40 years I was on the planet. But when I was trying to raise my frequency, I started to notice this voice in my head that would be very persistent and usually not that positive. So I had to start taking notes on my ego energy and what I was saying to myself, which really required me to be in the present moment. It required me to be listening to what was happening. So anytime I would say, well, I'm going to start this project, or I'm going to do this, or I want to do that, I would notice this voice in my head. And it would go something like this: You're crazy. You're not good enough. You're not prepared. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. And it was funny because it was so daunting. This voice in my head would say things to me that I wouldn't even say to a stranger or even an enemy. I wouldn't even think these words. But what I said to myself was so sad, honestly. It was sad because I would beat the crap out of myself all the time. And I don't know how I lived like that for so long or how I even was successful or even got out of bed with a voice like that. But I started taking a pen and I started writing down all the things I said to myself. And then I write it down all the things I was saying about other people or other initiatives or projects I was working on. And what I realized is that in my head, I was the worst culprit. I was negative Nelly in my head. And it's funny because at the time I thought I was completely by myself. But in reality, I'm not alone. I have learned that self doubt, fueled by fear of being embarrassed, fear of looking silly, fear of not fitting in, fear of not saying the right thing is a real thing. And that is what stems and fuels this voice in your head that basically tries to keep you in a holding pattern. So it might be easier to actually fix some of your commitments. It might be easier to kind of tune up some of your relationships. But what I found is to tune up that voice inside of your head takes a little bit more work. So, one, the first thing I did is I had to become aware of how I was talking to myself. And I kept a notepad that every time I said something negative to myself or about somebody else or about something I was working on, I would write it down. And then I would look at that and be like, is this true? Do I believe these things? And I would literally have to just sort of kind of scratch out everything I used to say to myself because I needed to create room for more love and light. And what I learned is like you're either living in fear, desperation, worry, and anxiety, or you're living in love and light. And unfortunately, you really can't live in both. So I had to train myself to live in more love, light, gratitude. And to do this, I first had to recognize how I talk to myself, but then I had to really adopt a practice of gratitude. And although I thought it was so silly years ago, I was desperate. I was in a place in my life where I wanted to raise my frequency. I wanted to really tap more into my intuition. I wanted to align within my flow. I wanted to align to the flow of love and light. I wanted to be part of this universal energy that really starts to manifest things before you leap into them. Because I had been working for so long on doing everything myself, touching everything, building everything, creating everything. And I was tired and I wanted to really live more in the flow of the universe so that I was working in conjunction with my higher self and I was leveraging my intuition to really guide me on where I was going. And to do that, I needed to raise my energy, raise my frequency. So the tools I'm sharing in this podcast are things that I've used myself to do that. And when I wanted to sort of work from the inside out and adjust the conversation I was having in my head, I really had to do this in a way that I had never done before. I had to look for the things that kept me inspired, appreciative, grateful, and alive. And so I had to train myself to find all the positive things happening every day. And I had to do that from the minute I got out of bed to the minute I went back to sleep. And it took a little bit of time to just really condition myself to see all the glory, all the positives, all the great things that were happening. But it did take practice. And it's not something any of us do, especially as we get older. We really are conditioned by the media and other sources to look at everything that is not working. And so really thinking about all the things that are working from, I'm so happy I can put both feet on my ground. I'm so happy I can put both feet on the ground today and stand up without any assistance. I love that my body lets me move around this planet. So grateful to have a toothbrush and toothpaste. This keeps my teeth clean in my mouth, right? Gives me the ability to smile at other people. I'm so grateful to have clothes to put on in the morning so I can go out into the world and feel good about myself. These are just a few things I would say before I even left my house for work. And I would continue that on because what I found is if I talk to myself in that way, there's not as much room for the negativity to come in. And when I'm feeling grateful and I'm aware of how I'm moving through the planet, I'm not only more present, but I can see what is crossing my path. And I get so many messages of things to focus on, work on, appreciate, connect with. And people would cross my path with similar frequencies or similar energy fields. So the people I get to interact with now are quite amazing. All the people that I've brought you through this podcast are people that have crossed my path because of my level of frequency, my connection to my intuition, and my connection to my higher self. So, I'm going to be putting out more details on how I can help you do that too. But starting here and taking a listen makes me so happy because I know more of us are awakening to the real reason we're on the planet and leading into gifts that we are here to share with so many. And I know I could not have done this if I didn't create space to tap into my intuition and to really connect with my higher self. And there was a little bit of work I had to do with my energy because I was living at a frequency that was too low to really tap into intuition. And I needed a new way to really raise my energy so that I had the ability to get the messages and connect with things that are outside of what I was experiencing to date. So I really appreciate you joining me here today. I hope you gathered some tools and techniques that you can use this week to really assess your energy and manage it to a level that awakens and provides a level of an experience that is already available to you. So I look forward to seeing you here next time. If you like this, make sure you subscribe or hit like, as we would love to find more of the awakened souls out there that are looking to connect in new ways. So with that, I'm signing off and I'll see you again here next time.